to the corporate services report at 3-002. So the motion comes from Deputy Mayor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Grell, that the committee of the whole recommends that council approve the consolidated general rates and fees bylaw number 23-002. So motion is on the floor, up for discussion. Any comments, questions, or queries? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you. Unfortunately, I didn't make the exact notation, but I saw that one fee had gone from $100 to $400 over a year. Is that ringing a bell?
Go ahead, Madam Treasurer.
Sorry, through your worship. If it did, that's a typo because they all, and I double and triple checked it, but there could be a typo in there, but the only changes should have been that we consolidated changes were made for through 2022 that were approved already, but just consolidated all into one document. And then the changes to the water sewer rates. There were no other changes to any fees at this time. So if you do find that, please let me know.
I will.
I'm looking at it. I don't see any discrepancy from one year to the other, but that doesn't mean that's not there. I'm just doing a cursory look. Anyway, but we'll double check that before we put it in place. Okay, sorry, Councillor Fody.
Just a question. When I was reading through all these bylaws, it makes for good entertainment somewhat. If I had 5 or 6 different vehicles scattered around my front yard and bylaw didn't like it, I could just pay a $55 annual auto wrecking yard license. Is it that simple?
No, I think there's a plan.
I didn't think so, but I had to ask the question.
Through you, no, it is
Ending of
absolutely not
application.
that simple. A property would have to be zoned to allow a wrecking yard and then technically licensed as a wrecking yard. And what the $55 annual fee is an inspection fee for staff to go out and ensure that it's in compliance with the approved site plan that regulates the property.
Okay, Councillor Burrell.
Just a quick question. The in the previous item that we had on the agenda, wastewater and water, there was the amended rates were there with the red highlighter. Are they the same as the one I'm looking at in the previous water, wastewater, because the rates are put in there and then changes are all in red? Is that exactly the same as the corporate services consolidated general rates without the red? Does that make any sense? Because I like the red. Thank you very much for putting it in there. It demonstrates what the changes were,
Yeah, track changes.
right? So are they the same?
They should be.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the red. I really appreciate that. Makes it very easy to read.
Yes, I agree. Any further comment or question in regards to the consolidated general rates and fees bylaw? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, all those opposed, and we're carried. Okay, next item on the agenda is corporate services report SR-003-23 recreation agreement with the Township of Athens. And the motion comes forward from Deputy Mayor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Grell, that the committee of the whole recommends that council authorize the approval of the agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Athens and the Corporation of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands regarding recreation services for a period of 4 years. Discussion on the motion. Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, all those opposed, and we're carried. Next item is 5.9 Administration Report SR-013-23 Recreation Cost Sharing Agreement, Lou Jeffries Arena for 2023 and 2024, moved by Deputy Mayor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Burrell. The committee of the whole recommends that council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute a recreation cost sharing agreement with the town of Gananoque regarding the Lou Jeffries Arena for a 2-year term in the form attached to SR-013-23. So discussion on the motion, and I'll recognize Councillor Lackey because he's been extremely patient at this point. So, yes.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. It was mentioned around the table earlier, I think from Councillor Jameson. I think what we need to focus on is whether it's this is an actual recreation offering from the township, a program, or are we helping someone else just make it along? I've never really agreed for many, many years because I've seen it grow with what we're doing here. Basically, we're funding someone else's capital, number one. But if you take it back to where we start with the kids of our community, so they have somewhere to go play hockey. It's a great arena. I played there my whole life. I coached my daughter there. It's a great facility. But in saying that, in doing the math on today's budget requirement at 154,000, or sorry, 158.5, that works out. If you want to talk about users, you're looking at $634 per user. I don't know about all of you, but that seems a little steep. Now, I've done a lot of research with this, and I've talked to some of the past directors of minor hockey. So we need to distinguish minor hockey from the arena, number one, because when you pay a fee for minor hockey, as the mayor will attest to, you pay X amount of dollars, whether it be $800, you pay minor hockey. Then we pay over and above this $634. That's fairly exorbitant amount of money. We just passed a resolution for Athens at $100 per family, not even per person, per family. Even if it was $100 per person, per resident, that would still be a heck of a nice deal for us. So I think not to, this is going to be a sticky item, but I have nothing in me that wants to pay this amount of money for the arena. I'm looking at line items and I'm going, okay, where are we? Just for instance, electricity and gas. We're consistent for 3-4 years at 36,000. Now all of a sudden, I know it's gone up, but has it gone up to 67,760? Gas from 11,000 to 17,500. Why are we paying for subscriptions and magazine subscriptions and whatever else? We're paying for a number of things. I want to pay for kids to go somewhere. We have how many rinks in Brockville? 3 now? 4? 4.
3,
3?
2. We've got the Memorial Center and the Brockville
Youth
Youth
Arena.
Arena. And there's an outdoor arena downtown.
Perfect. And we've got how many in Kingston? We have Rideau Lakes, we have Athens. We have lots of arenas around us. This one is very handy, but also in looking at users, let's go to and look at users. We have 45% roughly. GAN has whatever, 40 some percent. We have 29 from elsewhere. Are they paying 29% of the operating for that facility? Probably not. Come to find out, the arena doesn't even charge an out-of-town user fee. That was something that minor hockey did way back in the day. So first of all, it's, I guess, the wrong name, user fee, because they don't charge one. So as an example, all of us tonight, we want to have a hockey game against Gananoque Council. We go and say, how much is it per hour to rent the ice? Well, it's $240. Nobody's asking us where we're from. We don't get a different rate for the Lansdowne team versus the GAN team. You go and rent the ice and you go play hockey or figure skate or whatever it may be. So no, I would sponsor a program. I would do whatever, but not at $640 per child. And I get there's public skate and there's a lot of overlap. I played in 2 different leagues. So do they have me down here as 2 different people as far as when they do the numbers for users? Like, I don't know. It's kind of a mishmash of that's gotten out of hand. We may have a bad contract, we may not, but we've always done a 1-year term that we can end. I mean, we just don't renew it. To me, it's not rocket science unless I'm proven wrong.
Okay, further comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Based on the Athens
scenario and their 2018 TLTI usage, it would work out to $32,500 for a year. Quite a bit less. And the other thing, if they're not charging out of town fee for anybody else, how does it become fair that one group's not paying it?
So Councillor Fody?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I agree with Councillor Lackey. The price is, it's like anything else. I'm a chocolate lover, but you price the chocolate at a certain level and I don't love it so much. And Gananoque is getting their arena rate at that level. I personally drove a grandson from Lansdowne to play in hockey in Kingston last night. And they play there for a few other reasons. It's not as competitive. It's more of a fun atmosphere. But Gananoque, I see it akin to our wastewater system here. They have something that's very expensive to maintain, and they're looking for a way to do it. And of course, they're looking at us as being part of that. I understand that there's X number of families play there, but we all know that hockey in general is falling by the wayside as a sport of choice, mostly because parents, especially single parents, and I've talked to a few of them, they can't afford the equipment. The ice time is one thing. They could afford to pay Athens rate and go play, but they can't afford the equipment to do it. I think we need to set this decision aside tonight. I'm not looking to get in a dispute match with our neighbors in Gananoque. There's likely some common ground we could find for the number of people that do utilize it, but we can't just be seen as, I think Councillor Lackey alluded to on another subject earlier tonight. We can't just be handed the bill.
Okay. Further comments? Follow up, Councillor Lackey?
Thank you. Through you, I'll be short. If you think about it, 155,000 over 10 years, $1.5 million. We could put a beautiful outdoor rink somewhere in the township and even cover it, I'm sure.
Any further comments? So I'll add my thoughts in regards to this. So I guess I have a different perspective as my kids do play, utilize that arena, and not just for hockey, but also public skating. And actually, I want to speak on behalf of the parents. The people have kids in hockey and figure skating and public skating. So, obviously things have changed drastically from however you describe the building that was on the fairgrounds. That was, the local arena where everybody went, and there probably was outhouses there, not full bathrooms. Back in the day, and then that was discontinued, and that rink was built based on community involvement and fundraising and maintenance by local individuals. The township didn't even maintain it. Then you look towards the consolidation of us helping pay for it. And I believe, Councillor Lackey, you had told me that originally that the original agreement was something like $70,000 a year is what we originally had agreed upon when Dennis Aerosmith was on council.
Actually, just to clarify, when Councillor Aerosmith was involved, it was again back in the minor hockey is when they did charge an out of town user, whereby addresses were given to show where you lived, and then we just paid that fee on the parents' behalf, so they didn't have to worry about all that paperwork.
Okay.
So which was probably $100 or $80 per person.
So this original agreement, when it was first started, though, when we were splitting the amount, which was not that far back then, not Councillor Aerosmith's days, it started at 70,000, I believe. So anyways, my point is that when you look at it from an opportunity cost for families, I do understand that it is becoming more pricey. I have one kid who is not playing hockey this year. I have one kid that is and playing in Gananoque this year. Alternatively, I did drive to Piccadilly, which was up near Verona, for him to play last year because he wanted to play. And let me tell you, it's a long old winter when a 16-year-old's not playing. He misses it. And maybe I'm going too far in the weeds here, but I believe if we do not fund this, and I'm not saying that there isn't room for negotiation with the town of Gananoque in regards to how it's funded or whatever, but just a cautionary tale. We talk about the challenges with youth and what we're doing for youth in the area. We talk about drug use. We talk about the lack of community involvement. There was a U15 tournament at the rink. Finals were on Sunday and the rink was packed. And it wasn't parents that were there for their kids. It was families, friends, aunts, uncles who were there to support. And it also has a lot to do with building community and being part of something, being part of a team, being there to support. So all of that I'm asking is that the council leave an open mind. Personally, I want to see this agreement to help the arena remain open in one way, shape, or form. There's probably ways we can better manage it over time, but not having anything to do for youth in the area in the winter would be devastating for the youth, for the families, because some families, it's all they can do to drive to Gan, let alone Brockville or Kingston. And it's used for not just hockey. It's used for public skating, the amount of people that are coming and going for those public skates, both young and old. I guess I just want it. I also know that there will be a lot of unhappy parents on our doorstep if we choose not to go forward at all. So I hope that that's taken into consideration, because they won't be able to afford to drive their kids to Piccadilly, to Kingston, to Brockville. And I think that part of our challenges is we struggle to build community, and it's one of the few places that we do see our friends and neighbors and meet and have opportunities to get together. So I'll leave it at that. Based on what you were asking, Councillor Lackey, that you were looking to table this to have further information. Go ahead.
Sorry, as well, and just a bit of a rebuttal. We ourselves have, along with the town, have programs for those who need help in paying registrations. Unless it was ixed
Through the
somewhere
POP.
along the line.
The POP program.
Through the POP program. Canadian Tire has Jumpstart program. I myself as a coach was involved with that, and we had a dressing room full of girls' equipment, brand new, in the bags, 5, 6, 7 sets. And I think some of that came from the NHL Players Association, which sat there and did absolutely nothing but collect dust. So there is funding there. There is things for the people, not for the town or the rink, for the people. 158,000 is what, 1.5% on our taxes. There's your 1.5%. I'm not saying we give them nothing. I didn't say that. Didn't come from my mouth. Like I said, we just signed an agreement with Athens. Well, if we give the town double, even triple, it's still a far cry from $155,000 for recreation, which I agree, it's important, but we're surrounded by arenas. Ice is ice.
So the motion that's on the floor is to execute the recreation cost sharing agreement as proposed for a 2-year term. So either we have to defer this, change it, defeat it. So what would you like to do? I'll have Councillor Grohl and then Councillor Foley.
Thank you. Are we pretty confident in this percentage of users where the TLTI is shown to be around half? Are we confident that that is reasonable?
Yeah, very confident.
Okay. What kind of alternative do we have to providing, regardless of the number for a minute? Are we saying that we shouldn't be paying any capital? Are we saying we should pay different numbers, or alter the percentage of operating and capital? How else do we deal with this that's fairly straightforward? I don't quite understand what we could be doing differently. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Clarification?
Yep.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to do is separate the political with the sort of the business. I mean, we don't own it. We don't have any control over any of these pages on this document. We don't control the overtime hours. We don't control anything. What we do control is how our youth are treated, to promote them going to do something besides get in trouble. And I think in doing that, going back to the numbers, we give the people the money to do with, if they want to go public skating, go public skating. If you want to play hockey, girls hockey, figure skating, whatever it may be. Here's the money, but I don't want to be involved with the operations
Okay.
or the capital of this product.
So Counselor, like, just to be clear, we're suggesting we increase, say, a subsidy program directly to township users. Is that the route?
That's the crutch of it. Same as what we did with
Have-
Athens.
Have we?
Not more than moments
have-
ago.
I'm not familiar over the years of how we've really handled this. In my mind's eye, it didn't strike me as a ton of money for bang for the buck, but I don't know what that bang is. But if I see 50% of the users, is it reasonable to fund directly the families? I know we do have a program. What's it called? POPs?
There's POP and Jumpstart for those
Okay.
that
So-
demonstrate need.
I'm unfamiliar with how that could work really. Is it workable? Can someone tell me, is it something, yes, we could do that fairly straightforwardly, or would it cost us more money? Would it cost less money? What would we need? A registration of families come, hey, okay, we have 150 families, whatever, want to, and how would we do that? Is it practical? Thank you.
I think the administrative part of it would be not necessarily onerous, but different than what we're doing. But just to be clear, what you're suggesting is that we would defeat the agreement as it's
As is
presented.
presented.
And you would institute a subsequent program, but that program would have to be decided by the town of Gananoque, which would charge us an out-of-town user fee. Because the reason we have this agreement is that our people are not charged a user fee out from
But
out
they,
of town.
then to confirm, they never have.
They never have.
There's no out of town user fee for anyone.
So in hockey, there would be out of boundary. They would charge something.
No.
I know that they don't charge anything different for ice, but that's being addressed.
If
But-
minor hockey does as a separate entity, then that's them. That's not the town.
Go ahead.
I did clarify with the CAO from GAN, for privacy reasons, they can't, with minor hockey players, they can't get personal information about who and where they're from and all that sort of stuff. The teams won't provide it because they're worried about getting sued. The subsidy program is certainly worth exploring. The unknown here is whether GAN can run the facility or has the resources to run the facility
That's
on
it.
its own. So we might be subsidizing people that aren't going anywhere or have no place to go to play hockey, or we're subsidizing them to go to Rockville, Kingston, Piccadilly, Verona, wherever. So if I'm just looking at it from GAN's perspective as well, just if all of a sudden we're saying you're financing it roughly 50-50, they're a little higher than we are traditionally. If they're saying it's going to be $300,000, they're counting on 150,000, and they've now got to find the money for another 150,000 to cover the whole thing. That might prove a challenge for them.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. You yourself, the mayor, and myself, we represented this township council by sitting on a like agreement with the recreation group, I guess we called it, from the town. and we discussed some of this, and what came up was, I don't mind paying a little bit of capital, because of 50 or 60%, at one time it was 60%, by the way, from the township. If 50 or 60% of the people swinging that front door to walk in and out are from the township, we're 60% responsible for the time life of that door. Same with the Zamboni cleaning the ice, same with the ice maker. I mean, it's making the ice for 50, or we'll call it 50 for easy math. So we are responsible in that aspect for some of the capital. As for the building and the roof and all that Gananoque chose to build that arena, not this township. I suppose there was a agreement back on the day, can you please kick in? And pardon me? Yeah, the 76. And, the previous council made some agreement to get their name and highlights, or our name and highlights on the front lawn. But the cost is high. But I think, as Councillor Lackey had alluded to, and the CAO had mentioned as well, maybe we should do a better job of advertising, and maybe a survey. We did it with the waste management director of operations, pulled that off greatly. Maybe we should do a survey in our residents before next winter and say, if the township was to work with the town of Gananoque and provide figure skating for those who want to figure skate, hockey equipment for boys or girls. The girls hockey teams in Gan have always been strong for the last 20 years. Councillor Lackey, they've had a huge girls hockey team, better almost equivalent to boys right now. But let's get aside from that. I think we should explore, or at least make known to a lot of new residents, or residents that didn't have kids back in the day that do now. They were kids themselves and they now have kids, that there's ways we could help them out. And by doing so, it would help the arena and so on. I know the cafeteria back in the day was a booming entity. Now people don't even want to touch it, because there isn't the overhead cost and the revenue don't even come close to offsetting each other. But I think we should, my personal opinion, rather than defeat this, we should just defer it and then tweak it. That's my own personal opinion.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Jameson's point and then we'll talk about a deferral.
Can't say I've heard a compelling argument to go ahead with it, based on the numbers, not based on the value. The value in the sense of recreation value. But I would like to say that there's a ton of questions being asked, but not a lot of answers. So if there's a compromise to move it ahead, maybe it's a 1-year agreement, and then we get into a serious discussion about what we need to do. The comparison for me is, we have Springfield, we have the Sealy's Bay Community Hall, we have Jesse Street, and staff has I'll say imposed a discipline on themselves with respect to the asset management program, and they're being very careful with respect to the management of the buildings. And I really appreciate that. This thing is out there and we have no control over it. Our staff has no control over it. We really don't know how it is being managed from an operations or capital side. We're not imposing the same discipline on them as we will with our budget impose on ourselves and with our asset management plan. So if we do want to go down the road, the way I could see supporting it is for 1 year, with the provision that we immediately get into a discussion about what we as a township should be doing. Because I wonder how many people in the north, I know they'll go over to Athens perhaps, and maybe up to, I guess it's Portland. Westport, it's Westport, right. But how many, in the ward I have to represent are affected by this. So for me, the middle ground is 1 year and an immediate analysis of what the heck's going on with the costs there. And that's
So am I hearing that we're looking to defer this for further information to have further discussion at council? Or are you looking to amend this to a 1-year agreement with caveat that it's not, that we're terminating the agreement at the end of next year unless we can come up to another resolution? I'm just looking for direction from the group. So I've got Counselor Maybe's hand up and then I'll go back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really haven't spoken on this. I don't believe you're basically looking at $1 million facility a year to run and operate this whole thing. We couldn't afford that, even if we tried right now. We got too much on our plate. It's close at hand. I have been in this building pretty well all my life in different fashions. Most people don't know, but I'm a lifelong member of the skating club itself for all the activities that I've done over the years with them. More than 20 years looking after their ice show. But the facility, and my ex-wife was the manager there for quite a bit of a time. So I do know the facility fairly well inside and out, and all the improvements that they have done, and they do keep up on it. To say that it's falling down next year, not even a hope. There's a lot of things that have been done over the years to improve it, and that's part of these costs that we continue to see here that does it. We cannot afford to actually have a rink of that caliber on our own in this community at this moment. Maybe in our future, if we get another 10,000 people within our borders, we might be able to afford it. It's just like a swimming pool. It's a loss leader. You're not going to get your true value out of it. It's important for our community and the youth to have this facility open to them no matter what. So I think we could defer it, or we, with some information, but also to the 1 year to get a
Better
survey, get a clearer picture on what we really want, what we really need for our community, but keep moving forward, because it is important that we keep this going and that it's open for our residents. Thanks.
Okay, Counselor Jameson, did you want to amend this?
No, I'm just suggesting what you said and what Counselor maybe is saying, that 1 year and the discussion gets open without the pressure of trying to get budgets passed and things approved. That's all I'm saying is
So just to be clear,
1 year contract and an
immediate termination after the 1 year, unless a subsequent.
unless there's a subsequent
So
agreement.
we're giving notice on this agreement that we're only in this for 1 more year. And the reason I ask for that is because there is no termination clause in this agreement. It's an automatic 1 year term. So by giving notice now, we're going through this year. We're approving this subsequent year, but then in order to move forward, it also gives us the renegotiation of a different agreement, which is what I think what the will of council is.
Well,
Sorry,
just to finish this, the thought, and that is, anytime there's an automatic renewal of agreement, that makes me nervous.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's stop that part. Let's approve it so that there's some continuity and they can plan and we can plan, but then let's get together and figure out what needs to be done. And it may be exactly what we're doing tonight, approving another year at the same rate. But in the interim, I personally think it is not a good investment. Let's find out.
okay. Councillor Lackey.
I would agree, only if we keep the 2022 rates, we not give them the increase.
2022 rate was 145,274. That was 2022. So you don't want to give the 158.5. Okay, I'm gonna cite the CAO for right now, and then I'll make something up here.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. So the increase from 2022 to 2023 is 9%. I think it's fairly safe to say the costs of the facility are probably, the operating costs are probably in step with that. But if the will of council is for me to go back and argue over 9%, I will. The 1 year contract is good because it will also open up not only for us to have the discussion with GAN about alternatives going forward for subsequent years, if that's where we want to go. It also gives GAN the opportunity to
Plan.
plan for their finances based on a reduced participation financially by the township. So that's a good suggestion, Counselor Jameson. I like it for what it's worth. And I think it would also be challenging if our funding stopped effective December 31st of 2022. I think there might be some challenges with, again, for the remaining winter season of 2023. So I would not want to put them, our good neighbor, in financial jeopardy because of this, but that's just a consideration.
So I've got two things to put on the table here. So there's to reduce. The motion reads that the committee of the whole recommends that council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute a recreation cost sharing agreement with the town of Gananoque regarding the Lou Jeffries Arena for a 2-year term in the form attached to SR-013-23. So the amendment would be to a 1-year term. That would be we can do it all in one amendment. However, what is the will of council to change the amount? So it was suggested that it was based on the 2022 rate, or are we leaving it at the 2023 proposed rate, which is included in the budget as we speak? Go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
I totally agree with Councillor Lackey, but at this moment, I would go ahead with the 1 year as prescribed, just to avoid muddying the waters at this stage. And then let's get to the hard work of looking at a new world order. So in 2024, we're in better shape than we are now.
Okay.
So
the amendment would read that regarding the Lou Jeffries Arena for a 1-year term in the form attached to SR-013-23 and to give notice for termination of the agreement. So who's making the amendment? Councillor Jameson? Okay, and the seconder for the amendment? Lackey. Okay, and so the amendment is as follows. In the last sentence, that the Lou Jeffrey Arena for a 1-year term in the form attached to report SR-013-23 and give notice for termination of agreement. And that's put forward by Councillor Jameson and Councillor Lackey.
Is the 1 year, if I may, is the 1 year at the 2023 rate?
It would be at the presented at the 2023 rate, which is 158.5. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so discussion on the amendment. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I soften the wording that we're indicating we're done with any agreement with them?
So
It
instead of
sounds
termination,
it sounds a little tough, that notification. I would say we'll agree to a 1-year term pending a new agreement.
That, if I may,
all right, if I scribble on this.
that works because the agreement would expire anyway at the end of the
Right.
year.
Mm.
And if we didn't renew, it just wouldn't renew.
Sorry, what was the wording on that again?
Just anything along the line of we'll put in a 1-year agreement at the
Notification.
current rate. And then from there forward,
For
pending a
further-
new agreement.
Pending a new-
The actual agreement is just a 1-year term. There's no automatic renewals or anything that we've been doing fixed term agreements, so without automatic renewals, because we both GAN and the township have to go to their respective councils to renew the agreements or to put in new agreements. Renewal is not quite
Right.
accurate.
And I don't think anybody would, I can see where Councillor Lackey's coming from as far as holding the 22 rate. We've seen what rates have done on every aspect for this past year. That's why we're all in the position we're in with financial increases coming at us from every angle. And this would be no different.
Okay. So the amendment would be, providing that Jameson and Lackey are okay with this, that's for a 1-year term in the form attached to SR-013-23 with notification to negotiate a new agreement for 2024. Is that soft enough? I can't win with this.
Your
group.
worship, as long as we realize that we might not actually get to an agreement. I mean, the idea that.
It says with notification to negotiate a new agreement.
Yeah, which yeah.
Which can be, a negotiation is a negotiation, doesn't mean that it
could be,
ends up.
yeah. no.
Okay, okay, so I'm gonna call the question on the amendment unless you have a comment on the amendment. No, okay, so I'm gonna call the question on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? Carried. Okay, so the amended motion reads that the committee of the whole recommends that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a recreation cost sharing agreement with the town of Gananoque regarding Lou Jeffries Arena for a 1-year term in the form attached to report SR-013-23 with notification to negotiate for a new agreement in 2024. Okay, all those in favor, or you have
Just-
comments? Sorry.
Just one question.
Mhm.
Would the terms, which I did not read all of the terms here, are we satisfied that the terms in what's written here satisfy what we're asking in terms of that 1 year?
Through you, your worship. Yes, there'll be tweaks to the agreement
there would,
to,
okay.
to make it speak to a 1 year as opposed to 2 years
Okay.
throughout. So there'll be amendments, but it'll be consistent with the
Administrative.
agreement.
So that just flows from.
Yeah.
Based on the.
Very
motion.
good. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed, and we're carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so. Unfinished business, any unfinished business? Go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Your worship, just wondering, we rescinded a motion for Christmas with respect to a boathouse. Is that coming back?
It's coming to council because it was the technicality. I'll let the clerk explain it so I don't mess it up.
Thank you, your worship, through you. Yes, so it will be coming back to council on January 16th. There will be a cover report alongside with Director Vanditi's report just regarding procedural matters. So once the agenda is posted on Thursday, I will be sending out my regular email to council and noting the report that will explain what had happened when we were discussing the report, what actions were made and what actions should have been made and how we can correct this procedurally.
Go ahead, Madam Planner. Sorry.
Okay.
Let
Thank you
her-
through you. I think we're talking about two different things. So there's the application that was deferred, and then there was the motion that Councillor Gurel put on the table that was deferred. That I indicated I needed to seek legal input with respect to the motion. I believe that's the motion that you're referring to.
Right.
The township solicitor will be attending the meeting on January 16th to provide advice to council with respect to that.
Okay, good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so that answers that. Councillor Maybe, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My usual one, the 401 light. I just thought I'd bring it up one more time. I got to keep hammering that light to see if it can blink for us. Thanks.
Any other unfinished business? Go ahead, Councillor.
Has there been any movement regarding the, is it the interim bylaw? Have I got that correct? With the notice of motion that I'd put forward
Interim
Regard-
control bylaw.
in interim control bylaw, has there been any movement on that? And I know we had talked about February being a reasonable timeframe. Are we still good with that?
That is what the township solicitor will be coming to speak to council to at the next meeting.
Okay, so that's that issue. And therefore regarding what was the motion of reconsideration?
Mhm.
Is he also speaking to that,
Procedurally?
the
Procedurally,
solicitor,
no,
or is that something we're just discussing?
as indicated by the clerk, that will
Mhm.
be coming, that application will be coming forward to council at the meeting on January 16th. There's going to be a cover report from the clerk explaining procedurally how that unfolded.
Mhm.
And so that application will be back before council at the meeting on the 16th.
When we bring that back on the 16th, being a council meeting, as opposed to a committee of the whole meeting. It was indicated at the time and that the issue would come before a committee of the whole. And the issue I'm talking about is the motion of reconsideration. It was mentioned numerous times, and I asked for clarification that it would come before a committee of the whole. So when it comes up next week, is that again open for debate because council meetings preclude the public?
I can make an allowance as the chair, that to open up discussion on that, should we wish to have it.
I would add that it's already been subject to a public meeting and discussion at the committee of the whole, but in addition to that, the applicant or anybody can provide a submission to council for consideration up to the time council makes a decision regarding the application. But as you've mentioned, council also has the purview to allow that.
So I certainly don't, as the chair, I certainly don't have a problem taking any further comments. My only hope would be is that it's not a rehash of the same information. If there's anything new or any other further information that can be added to the conversation to further the conversation is what I'm hoping for. Because the comments that were made that night by both council and the public were noted. And I'm not trying to stifle discussion, but I don't want to end up having the exact same conversation again to rehash it, but hopefully find something a bit more streamlined. So I certainly don't have a problem opening up discussion. in
And
public.
one last question, and this would be perhaps answered next week, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are we aware of anybody who has filed any papers to the appropriate body, such as the Ontario Land Tribunal, if that's where this would be filed? Are we aware of that? Or would that be something that our lawyer would discuss next week?
Through your worship, an application can't be filed until a decision, or can't be appealed until a decision is made by council. So following a decision on the application, a notice of passing or a notice of decision is required to be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act that sets out the requirements for an appeal to be submitted.
So they can't.
So they can't
go
appeal
to
until there's a
because
decision.
We haven't made a decision.
What came before us was a motion of reconsideration. And my understanding is a notice of reconsideration cannot be brought forward if material action has been taken by any party outside of our realm. Meaning, I think, Steve, you'd understand this completely, but if someone had initiated an action through, and they said, hey, look what council did, and I'm not happy. And then they started an action that would preclude even having a motion of reconsideration, in my understanding of it.
Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. My understanding of, and we've had discussions amongst the team, is what should have happened when the motion was defeated at the committee of the whole was it should have went to council as the committee of the whole does not recommend this application, and then council could have passed or defeated it. At that point, there would have been a decision of council, and we would have fulfilled the requirements of law. And that would open the door for somebody to make an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal and so on. So we're missing that decision of council. So that's why we're coming back is to have council render a decision on that application, knowing that the motion was defeated at first instance at the committee of the whole. That wasn't the end of it. And that's where we made our mistake. Was we should have continued on to the council meeting, the following council meeting with that report, knowing that it had been defeated.
Okay. So there is really no motion of reconsideration at this time. It's sort of gone away. Is that fair to say?
It's in essence, yes.
In essence.
Yeah.
But we have an untied
Yeah.
end. We have a loose end.
A loose
because we
end.
never actually made a decision on the application that was put forward. So it has
Okay.
to come back. to
So
council.
we can get rid of that terminology.
Yeah.
And that will
Thank
be in
you.
the report for further clarification for the public as well. Go ahead, Counselor Jameson.
So I just want to be understanding this. It was defeated.
At committee of
My,
the whole.
yeah, it was defeated at committee of the whole. My concern was that as per the planning director's report, my concern was that she had checked off all the boxes and it all looked pretty copacetic, whole 9 yards. And yet we defeated it, which put us in a position if we had defeated again, but we were supposed to get some legal input. And I'm assuming we're getting that legal input before we consider this application again. Is that correct or am I wrong?
So for clarification, there's two separate matters to be considered. One being the application for 322 Stratford Road, which the committee of the whole made a recommendation to council. And the motion was defeated, but council never made a decision on the application with respect to 322 Stratford Road. At the same time, Councillor Gurrell brought forward a notice of motion with respect to flat roof boathouses and how they should be approached. And that motion was deferred to allow staff to obtain further legal input with respect to procedurally how to address that type of consideration. That's coming forward to council on the 16th, and the township solicitor will speak to that. In addition, the application regarding 322 Stratford Road will be brought forward on the agenda on January 16th for council to make a decision on with respect to the recommendation coming from the committee of the whole, which wasn't previously dealt with. So there's two separate issues at hand to be dealt with.
Okay, so, I trust that the report that's coming forward will help clarify this and maybe in black and white, because I know there's a lot of discussion about this and there's a lot to consider. But we do want to make sure that we pin a bow on this one way or the other, and do it correctly, so that we can, so we use the wrong termination, or sorry, late. We used the wrong language, but the intent was still, we didn't do anything we shouldn't have from the point of view that we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot. Is that a better way of putting it? So anyways, back to unfinished business. Is there any further unfinished business? There is one thing that I'd like to bring to council's attention. So we have not advertised for an economic development committee at this point. It was discussed in further discussions that what we really wanted the economic development committee to do. Having said that, we have to go through a community improvement plan process in 2023. It is my suggestion to the group that we go through the community improvement plan process in 2023, and depending on what comes out of that process, decide at that point whether we have things that an economic development committee could help move forward or not. I guess my concern would be is that we create a committee to come up with, we can't incentivize business individually. We have to do something for the greater good. I think that in the interim, we could put more effort into the peer committee, which also has our chambers of commerce included in that, and then also direct the energies from the peer committee into the community improvement plan, which would then inform whether or not we have things for the economic development committee to do. Because while they were very helpful and brought things to the attention of the organization, I believe that there was times that committee was frustrated with the lack of things to do and the lack of progress, but we're limited as to what we can do as an organization because it can't be specific to one business or another. So is that something that is okay with council, that we are not advertising for members of that committee at this point in time? Is that a suggestion that is landing, not landing? I'll have Councillor Fody and then Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Having sat on that committee, there's a lot of good mindset sat around that table with a lot of good input. I would hate to see that wasted or lost. So perhaps we could redirect them, those that want to stay involved with Peter, as you had said, because you're right, there was frustration around there in a number of ways. But there wasn't a lot, as you said, could be done about it. It's not that we could dump $100,000 or $400,000 in a lap and say, show us what you're going to accomplish. We could have, but
Based
you-
on tonight's conversation, probably not so much.
that's right. And so therefore, my whole point is I don't want to lose the mindset that sat around that table. I'd like to see them repurposed, or at least be involved in the repurposing, and then what comes of that, so be it.
Okay. Councillor Jameson, go ahead.
So if the sorry, wrong industry.
Oh.
If the SIP process proceeds and we engage community groups in moving that forward, there's two things about that. One, it's a formal process and we get on with it. And two, the community groups actually represent a larger body than individuals sitting around the table. So maybe that's where we go first. And as a result of getting through that, to Councillor Fode's observation, at that point, we determine what we need in the way of support for the outcome. Because we do have, my understanding is, we can determine, other than the legislated committees, we can determine what is formed and what isn't, but we really don't know yet what should be formed, and we need to hear from the community. And I think makes sense. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions in regards to that? So based on the consensus around the table, we will table the Economic Development Committee for 2023 until we get through the community improvement plans, obviously including those who are involved in peer. Peer is not, we don't recruit for the peer committee because the terms of reference identify what groups are represented. And we will absolutely ask for their involvement within the community improvement plan process. But also, should there be a need for forming a formal economic development committee at the end of that process, we'll have hopefully involvement from those community improvement contributors, if you will. So unless I hear something different, that'll be the will. Okay, we'll move on to other business. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On December 23rd, 32 Highway had a major water event, which I and Fire Chief were there on site. And again, just wondering how that's going to work out with the county. And as we believe CN may have let go some water that was damming up there. So just a recap of possibly different things that are happening on regards to Highway 32 and the action that's going to be required over and above what's already happened there to reinstitute the roadway.
I know that the Director of Operations has reached out to county and is going to be meeting, having an initial meeting to talk about things that happened during that event. We will take, sorry to put you on the spot, Dave, but based on that, after that meeting, if there's work to be done about what we're hoping to see come forward out of that, the learning experiences, Dave can make a recommendation to me that I can bring to County Council. I don't want to beleaguer the point, but that whole event was difficult for a number of reasons. There was a lot of contributing factors, and we appreciate the help from fire to help block off the road. But the director and I went out to visit because of the confusion between county and township. We went out to visit an individual who was pretty much the first house on the onslaught of the water. And there's 4 feet of material in his yard. And there was 8 inches of water in the garage because the garage was down a knoll. There's a huge cleanup that's involved there, but there was a failure of a couple of different things that happened that caused all of this to happen. The amount of water, like you're talking about a ditch that's 12 feet down that filled and went over the road. Like if you stood there, you couldn't fathom the amount of water that would need to come all at once. Having said that, talked to some people around town and that corner has been a source of issue for a long, long time. There's been major accidents. There's been drownings on that corner where people have gone into the river. It was many moons ago. Those are all traumatic things. And I think there's work to be done on maintenance, but also the coordinated effort that was required during that significant weather event. Because there was also an incident on County Road 3 that was very dangerous. And we're very fortunate that nobody was hurt any worse than they were. Thankfully, nobody had any catastrophic injuries, but 7 cars piled in a snowdrift is not safe. And the road wasn't closed till unfortunately a lot later during that day. Go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Upstream, is there any look at liability for upstream behaviors that brought that water down in the first place?
I believe that the director will be having that conversation as to who's responsible for what. I sent out a very specific email to CN that I have yet to receive a response to. Ancillary remarks are that call our lawyers. It's not a working relationship. We've struggled with CN, and this is my own opinion, not the director's. If you want something from CN or you need to work with them, it is not simple. It is not easy. They are not responsive. In fact, you have to beat the door consistently. So I think the thing that disturbs me most about this incident was the blatant disregard for what was happening downstream and not even a phone call to say, oops. Because whether they intended to take out a beaver dam and bring this onslaught of water, we don't even know because there's never been a conversation. This could have been a mistake, but we don't know.
So it's a public discussion, obviously, that CN had something to do with this. So, I mean, there's a liability there, and personally, I think it should be pursued through legal means.
Well, and when you talk about what it's going to cost the county to repair that corner, plus the ditching, plus the removal of debris to better figure things out, like there was emergency repairs to driveways so that people could get in and out. The bill for that is going to be quite significant because they're going to have to repave that corner because a third of the east side of the road disappeared with the water. And, I think the other thing that came to my mind, and there was many people who were still driving on the closed road, that the road underneath was undermined. There could have been a sinkhole. Somebody could have went in, could have dropped. It was amazing to me that I didn't quite understand it until I saw it myself. So, I'm not sure that we did things correctly, but that's part of the discussions on how do we deal with something like this? Because it isn't if another significant weather event happens, it's when. And we need to work together, both as township, county, fire, police, ambulance, all of the first responders. Like our fire department came to the ready to block off road. That's not necessarily their job unless they're asked. But the first accident on County Road 3 happened at 9:30 in the morning. That road didn't get blocked off till almost 3. It was too long. Now, that's not the fire department's fault because they weren't called till then. But this is where we learn from these events. That's why we have emergency management updates or the training so that we avoid further communication breakdowns in the future. But we've got 10 minutes left and I don't want to use this motion, so I'm going to shut up now. So anyways, go ahead, Councillor Fody.
I think we should mention kudos to our works department for what they did pull off or were able to pull off on Christmas Eve with the weather the way it was. And as you just alluded to the incident on County Road 3, they also fought a fire in the village of Lyndhurst. I'm sure there was other incidents they attended to that we know nothing about, but it was an insurmountable storm that we don't see often, hopefully don't see again, but it could have been much more dangerous. And I think the general public, getting back to your mention of driving on a closed road, I think there's too many of the general public don't realize when you enter a closed road, your insurance has just been nullified. When a road is posted as closed and you go past that sign, zero insurance, no matter what happens to your vehicle or yourself.
Any further other business? I see none. Notice of motion, notice of motion, notice of motion. None. Mayor's update. So happy New Year to everybody. We made it through this significant weather event. And we do appreciate each and every employee's efforts over the holidays. I know it's difficult. People want to be with their families, but there was lots of things to do. And our roads were in very good shape. And we appreciate that very much, especially when it comes to visiting family and friends. TLTI has a variety of programs for residents to take part in. I noticed that there were some posts on social media about yoga exercise classes. So if you've made New Year's resolutions, we might be able to help out. And there's some options there. Bob Birch Bluegrass is performing at the Sealy's Bay Community Hall on Sunday, January 9th from 2 to 4 p.m. Put your dancing shoes on. A reminder that the winter parking bylaw is now in effect. Parking is not permitted on streets or roadways between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. We really don't have to worry about the snow removal right at the moment, but I'm sure it's coming. Frost Fest is February 4th, I believe. 3rd, 4th, 5th. Right. Sorry, I was going by memory. So I'm unfortunately away at that part in time. 3rd, 4th, 5th. So please put that on your calendar so that you can attend. It's always wonderful. And I believe there's usually fireworks. And 3rd, 4th, 5th. Thank you. So please put that on your calendars and come and enjoy the fireworks. I'm sorry I'm missing it. Also kudos to our fire department and the recruitment that's happening ongoing. We know that they're pushing that out hard. So if you know of anybody who's looking to train, get another skill, beef up the resume and give back to their community, it's a great way to do it. And other than that, is there anything in Rockport going on in February? Nothing. Well, we've got council next week. We can also bring that up. So any other announcements? Oh, I went to the mayor's levy. That's right. Sorry. I gave a small speech at the Legion and they gave out the person or business of the year. And they recognize Shorelines Casino, the Proud program. So that's their community betterment arm of the employees that give back. And they've done a lot of great things around both Gananoque and the township. And it's really all organized through the staff members who are there. So they recognize the Shorelines Casino and their contribution to our community. So Mayor Beddoes from Gananoque and myself were there along with Deputy Mayor Olkey and a number of individuals from the community and the Legion. So it was well attended. Anything else I forgot? Okay. So don't need the extension motion. There's no in camera this particular meeting. So we'll move on to number 11, which is adjournment. And it's moved by Deputy Mayor Olkey, seconded by Jack Salaki, that the committee of the whole adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed?